Take real estate as a shot or as a fully stocked cooler. This is the 5 o'clock somewhere Real Estate Investor Podcast. We're bringing common sense back to real estate investment. So crack open your beverage of choice, sit back and relax, and allow us to learn you a thing or two.
So today we're going to get into, we'll talk a little bit about management. Our team has several management companies we refer our clients to, and we know the ins and outs and the do's and the don'ts, and we'll talk about that when we come back.
We are sponsored by Title Assurance and Escrow, a title company here in Cordova that does all of our closings, title work, escrows, and we only use Title Assurance and Escrow. That relationship is very important because we can get things done for our investors quickly and easily. So to speak with Title Assurance and Escrow, call 901-737-3332. Ask for Chris or April.
Well, welcome to It's 5 o'clock Somewhere Real Estate Podcast. We're not experts. We actually know what we're talking about. In the studio is myself, Brett Bernard, and Jeff McNett, Nick Gibson, and Richard Roy, our British prick producer.
Oh, who's the prick? You can't even speak.
I can't even pronounce prick I can't even pronounce British anymore. That's how much it ties me up.
You take a look at me and you get excited.
I don't have issues with seminars anymore. I have issues with British. That's my new thing. Well, before we get into talking about management companies, give us a call, 901-692-7401, or go to our website at mymemphisinvestmentproperties.com. On there, you can find a for sale page where we have all of our properties listed with photographs, descriptions. We are an investment team. That's all we do is work with investors and helping them buy and sell real estate portfolios, commercial, multifamily, and single family. All right, so let's get into management. Let's get into the dirty word, property management. I'm going to say this. There is no such thing as a great management company. There's two types of management companies. They're either okay or they're complete shit. That's it. If somebody says they're the greatest management company on the planet, they're full of crap because there's no such thing. And let's get into the whys.
I think there are going to be aspects of property management that certain companies can be great at.
Right.
But as a whole, rolled into one package, I don't
one
think there's
size
anyone
does not
perfect.
fit all, right? We were just talking about a particular management company that does a good job in areas like Cordova, Bartlett, B neighborhoods, right? And when they start taking on the C average neighborhood properties, they weren't equipped for that. They weren't equipped to deal with those types of tenants, those types of repairs, and all the amount of work that goes into managing those properties. And they, in my book, failed miserably.
Tell us the difference. C versus B neighborhood just tend to be more work, repairs requests in these
not necessarily
C neighborhoods.
You're dealing with a different type of tenant. Right? You're dealing with a guy that works in the C neighborhood. He's working at FedEx 16-hour shifts. Well, guess what? He doesn't have time to come home and do the things that.
There you go. There's that. Some of them work two jobs.
A nurse practitioner who lives in Cordova, she may work a lot of hours, but she makes a little extra money, so she hires a yard guy or, has somebody clean the house or something like that. There's just a different level of renter. Now, with that said, the C neighborhoods is where there's a sweet spot for cash flow. That's where you make your best money. But the key to being a successful investor, one of the keys is management. Because if you end up with a bad manager, your profit's going to get eaten up day in and day out. And let's talk about examples of how an investor could, get $1,400 a month of rent and at the end of the month get a check for $50. We were just talking about this. Management companies, which we work with, we have them, and actually we're looking at putting together a deal to have kind of our own quasi-management service for our investors. But let's say a sink gets clogged. Well, a lot of management companies don't ask, well, okay, Mrs. So-and-so, your sink's clogged. Have you tried to clear it? Yes. Well, can you tell me what's happened? I don't know. I just dumped a pot of food down the sink and turned the disposal on and it's clogged. Okay. Well, you can pretty much identify what's happening. The food didn't cut up. It got in the pipe and it got stuck. So it needs somebody to come out and just clear it. Now, the typical management company is going to send out a plumber who's going to charge a trip fee of $200, right? And probably another $150 in labor to clear that line. Then the management company is going to take that invoice from that plumber and they're going to send it off to who? The investor.
Marked up most of the time.
Marked up, or have a maintenance fee on there or some kind of charge. So what has happened is the tenant created the problem. The tenant got it fixed for free. The management company made money on it, and the investor got screwed. Now, what should have happened in that situation? The management company says, well, Mrs. So-and-so, you dumped the pot down there and it's clogged, so you're now responsible for that. Now, so you can either get somebody to come fix it or we'll send somebody out to fix it, but you're going to have to pay for that. A lot of management companies don't take the extra time to figure out what the cause of the problem was. I'm going to give you a perfect example. And this is one of the companies we were talking about before. I got a call from my investor, who was a Japanese, and he said, Brett-san, that's what he called me, Brett-san. I didn't realize they do put san behind every name. He said, I just got a invoice for an HVAC tech to be dispatched and to repair or replace a leaking faucet in the bathroom. So I said, okay, give me a tenant's info. So I got tenant's info. I called the lady. I said, can you tell me what's going on? Well, air won't come on. It's hot. And in my bathroom, water is coming out of the top of the two left and right handles, like leaking out. I said, okay, well, let me come by and take a look. So I get over there and I go outside and yep, absolutely. AC won't work. I kept messing with the thermostat, wouldn't work. Went in the laundry room, checked all the breakers. They were good. Couldn't figure out what was wrong. So I was about to say, well, I think we're going to have to go ahead and, get a tech out here. And I was like, let me go outside and look. So I go out and open up a panel and the breaker was flipped. So I don't know if somebody turned it off, if it tripped or whatever. So I flipped it on. It worked, and still to this day, that air conditioner is still running. That was 2 years ago. And I went in the bathroom, took a screwdriver, took the handles off, and just screwed down the insert where the little valves are. Just tightened it up and put the handle back on, stopped the leak. But the management company was about to charge minimum, probably $500 to have somebody show up out there to deal with those two problems, and I did it for free. So some management companies, I don't think you should be an investor, what I call an armchair investor. Don't buy properties and throw them out to a management company and just say, send me my check. Because what's going to happen is, over time, they're going to start dwindling that money down. They're going to find ways to make money off of your money. You're not going to make a lot of money as an investor. You've got to take some responsibility for what's going on with your property and not just trust that whatever they tell you is fact.
Well, that's where we come in. We do a lot of that. We're that buffer between the management company and our investor because we're willing to go out and check these properties for our investors.
I have fixed many leaky faucets. I have tightened up many P-traps. I have plunged and drainoed many sinks and toilets for my investors at no charge. It's not that it needs to be done. I get it. If you're a plumber and you get sent out to a job and it's a simple Drano job, yeah, I mean, you need to get paid for your time. You drove all the way out there. I get that. But on the management side, someone should have investigated that a little further before just calling out a plumber, right? And tell the tenant, look, that's not our problem. You created that problem. So therefore, you're going to have to pay for that. We just had one, same company we're talking about, one of my investors, and the tenant called and said the floor is damaged by the washer. Well, that company wanted my investor to go repair the floors because the tenant was complaining about it. Then we found out it was from the washing machine.
That the tenant owns.
The tenant put it in. The tenant's washing machine damaged the floor. So now she's now responsible for that repair, but they were just going to have him pay for it. And that's my issue with some of these management companies. So that's one big issue you got to pay attention to if you're an investor. I don't care if your house is in a B neighborhood or in a C neighborhood. It doesn't matter. You got to pay attention to what's going on with those properties because 9 times out of 10, the problem with the house is caused by who? The tenant. That tenant is responsible for those repairs.
Now, Brett, I'm assuming that a management company, a tenant calls, requests a repair. I'm assuming the management company authorizes that repair through the investor before they just go out and do it and send the investor a
Most
bill
of them
for it.
have up to a certain dollar amount.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they give
emergency
them
service, just fix it. Otherwise, call it.
Well, herein lies another issue. I've seen this happen with one of our investors that was on in this very studio with us not long ago. He was pissed because he didn't get money for like 3 months. And I said, send me your invoices. So he sent them to me, and they had a minimum of $250. Well, guess what? Every single thing on there up to $4,000 was $248, $249, $221. But 4 or 5 of those were for the same vendor. So it was like they were purposely chopping up the bids to do that. But he authorized the work because it was 200, but he didn't realize, I guess he didn't pay attention, and they kept doing it and doing it and doing it because it was just under that minimum amount. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, listen, there are a lot of management companies out there, and there are some bad ones and there are some good ones. I'd say average ones. But as an investor, if you want to do right and you're going to be with a management company, you've got to take the time, if not once every 2 weeks, sit down and audit what's going on with your property. Audit what the management company is doing. Audit the repairs that are coming in. And if you have us as an agent, feel free to send it to us and say, hey, this is what I got. What do you think? And we'll physically drive over there and check it out. And 9 times out of 10, I find that it was a simple fix. Didn't need to be $3,000 or $4,000 job. It was something simple.
See, that's a typical accounts payable trick businesses use as well. Bill multiple times, you get more money.
Correct.
So do you find that there are property management companies out there that will only react to something once you've given approval? There is no 250 limit. You absolutely will not do anything unless they...
There are a few that get approval for everything. And I'm not defending these management companies that are doing this, but in their defense, I guess, is that they get so many properties and they're dealing with so much at one time. The small stuff just gets thrown, just slid over here, approve. And I get it. You can't have 10 people just running out all over town checking this work. But there's got to be a way to manage that. There's got to be a better way to manage the system to understand how the problem was created to begin with. And if you find out, let's think about it. If I took some of my investors that have had repair issues and only half of them were their responsibility and the other half were tenant's responsibility, I would probably guess that they would have saved all of them combined $10,000 over the last 2 years. That's a lot of money. When you're doing an investment in your ROI, you're trying to hit that 1%, but then at the end of the day, you're getting like 4% for repairs because the repairs are eating everything up. There just got to be a way to double check that.
Do they use the tenant's deposit money for some of that, or is that just held till that tenant moves out?
No, the deposit can't be used for anything but the lease itself, okay? And it's for damages. But you can't really charge that deposit back to the tenant until they vacate the property.
Right.
But you can. The tenant clogs the toilet. I've had a clogged toilet, and turned out, guess what? They pulled out 2 Legos, a Beanie Baby type stuffed animal, and something else. The 2-year-old was flushing stuff down the toilet. That's not the investor's responsibility. That had to be, they had to snake the sewer line 4 times. 4 different times it happened. And then eventually, guess what? The snaking did what? It cut the roots that were growing through and collapsed the sewer line. So whose responsibility is that? My investor's not flying here stuffing toys down the toilet. The child was. And that's that tenant's responsibility. So you would then put it on their bill. You put it on their lease. And okay, you can't afford to pay $500 to us, so we'll put $100 on your lease for the next 5 months, and you pay it.
Well, to expound on property management, obviously there's more things they do than just deal with repairs as far as evictions, tenant placement. What are some questions that investors should be asking when interviewing potential property management companies?
Do you have an eviction attorney that you use? Who is it? What's their name? What's their phone number?
Did you say attorney? Was that
a
Freudian
an eviction
slip?
attorney? Yeah, I did say that.
He did.
That was a Freudian slip. Do you have an eviction attorney on staff? Do you have a dedicated maintenance person on staff? Who is that? Do you hold tenants accountable for damages? They're all going to say yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it's a key question to ask. Do you have a minimum for repairs where I'm not notified? If they do, you just flat out tell them, well, if you want my business, my minimum's $1. I want to be notified every single time something goes wrong. Now, this other investor, Michael, that we were talking about, that was with this other company, we moved into a different company. He loves them because he gets an email every single time. If a light blows out, he's notified. He knows what the problem is. And he also, they check in and let him know, well, yeah, that was a tenant's problem, so we're going to build him back for it. We'll get it repaired. You'll pay for it, and then we're going to build the tenant back for it, and you'll get your money back. And he's good with that. But that's the biggest difference between those two. So the questions are, yes, do you have an eviction attorney? Do you have a dedicated maintenance person? Do you have a minimum bill charge for where I'm not notified? Those are key questions, because what you don't want to do is get $1,200 a month rent and all of a sudden get a check for $100 and an invoice with $245, $235, $215, where they've just eaten up all your money. Now, I think the minimum should be $250, period, in 1 month. So once you exceed the $250, I don't care if the next one's $5. You need to notify that person, notify the investor.
Well, there's an example where you can mark up the contract, say that it's $250, but in any given 30-day period or calendar month.
Yeah,
you pick it.
It's a 30-day period or calendar month, whatever. But once you've spent $250 unauthorized, because that's our contract, then you're notified of anything else that happens that month.
What happens when my hot water heater bursts in the middle of the night? Can I call the management company, or are they
all management
9 to
companies
5,
have it. All management companies have a 24-hour emergency service.
They have a service.
A lot of management companies now ask them if they have an app, a maintenance app. That's very key, because when they move a tenant into a home, everyone's got an iPhone. They can put the maintenance app on their phone, and in the middle of the night, if they have an emergency, they can get on the maintenance and go to the emergency number and put a call in. Hey, my water pipe just burst. My house is flooding. And they can get somebody dispatched immediately.
It's interesting you brought that up, because in Tennessee just recently, they passed some laws that mean that property management companies have to have that service level. Most of them already did.
I figured most of them would.
But it's bringing up the level for those that don't.
Well, that's good.
The app is a key question. Ask that property manager. If you can call us at 901-692-7401. We've got 5 that we work with that we can refer you to. And when I said earlier that one size doesn't fit all, that is what I mean. We picked the companies that cover all of the gamuts, from the B and A neighborhoods all the way down to the low-end neighborhoods. Some companies are great in those D and C neighborhoods with the MHA, and other ones are horrible at it. But those companies that are good with the MHA are horrible with the Bs and the As. So depending on what kind of property you're going to buy, depending on the area, the location, the market, the type of tenant, would then help us direct you to the right management company to handle your specific property and your specific type tenant. And people always say, well, you can't just really talk about different tenants. Well, let's face it. Tenants are different, right? Neighborhoods are different. Certain type tenants take better care of homes than others. So when it comes to management, it's extremely important for an investor to make sure you pick one that works for you. Make sure you pick one that has got your best interest at heart and not their own, and not the vendors. Because as we talked about earlier, there's been situations where vendors have gone out and created work for themselves. And had my investor not called me about it and sent me the invoice or sent me the bid, they would have never known that that's what was happening, until I went out and looked at the work myself, and Jeff was with me, and realized half this work was already done or didn't need to be done.
Well, Brett, that's one of the things that sets our team apart from a lot of others. We're willing to get out and do that for our investors.
I got asked by somebody very big in town before, why the hell you do all that? You don't get paid to do that. I'm like, because those investors come back to me because I do that.
We do get paid in the long term.
In the long run, those investors end up buying 20, 30 properties from me. So, yeah, it's I look at it as an investment of my time. Now, we're in the process of setting up our own quasi-management company with an electronic AI system out of Nevada, which will do the basic bookworking management side, and we'll kind of do the legwork here in Memphis. So hopefully before long, we'll be able to actually offer boots on the ground management services from our team, which we offer pretty much anything else you need, A to Z. That's the one piece we don't have. We just do referrals to management. Nick, what are your experiences with management companies?
I get asked to bid work, through multiple different management companies, and I bid a lot of jobs. Most of the time it's low bid, because that's what investors want to pay for. But then those management companies are also when something goes wrong, they're calling me to come in and fix it behind them because they don't have somebody going by to look and make sure this work was done, make sure it was done correctly before it was invoiced. So that's my biggest, I guess, gripe about management companies is if you're going to manage the property, manage it. Have somebody going out, walking these properties, checking the work that's being done. And that's the way that you can do right by your investor.
Well, and that's the service that we provide, believe it or not.
Yeah, we're doing it anyway.
A previous life, before we ended up where we are now, we were with a company that was charging for that service. But no one from that company was going out and checking the work. I was having to go do it. I didn't get paid to do it, but I did anyway. I think that's part of our success. That's the reason why investors come back to us, is because they know that they can pick up the phone and call me tonight, and I'll be by tomorrow to check it out for you before you spend a dime. So I guess in a nutshell, there are a lot of important aspects to being an investor. But I think if you're an out-of-town investor, property management is very crucial, because if you pick the wrong company, your investment can turn into a nightmare very quickly. When an investor says, I might as well sell all my properties and not make any money, you got a problem. And there have been management companies out there, and I've had many investors that have said that to that management company. I'm not making any money, so why do I even have these properties? But keep in mind, investment and management go hand in hand, but at the same time, they can be polar opposites as far as goals. The management company's goal is to make money. The investor's goal is to make money. But the management company controls the flow of that money, so you then have to take back control of that money. You got to put your foot down. You got to put your parameters in place and tell that management company, this is how I want you to do it. And if they say, we don't do it that way, then hang up the phone, call us or call somebody else. Go somewhere else, because someone will do it the right way for you. And we'll be glad to give you any recommendations. 901-692-7401 or go to mymemphisinvestmentproperties.com.
For more common sense real estate tips, listen and subscribe at 5o'clocksomewherepodcast.com. The 5 O'Clock Somewhere Real Estate Investor Podcast is a Sound Ideas Group production.